Coming up on this Hunter College Newsbreak, we'll tell you about the scholarship that allows thousands of New York City students to attend college tuition-free.
And we'll take a look at the latest humanitarian project that this Hunter College sorority is working on.
And later, Hunter students speak out. We'll hear their thoughts on climate change and Confederate monuments.
All that and more in this Hunter College Newsbreak.
Hello, and welcome to this Hunter College Newsbreak. I'm Kaylee Ebanks.
And I'm Veronica Matveev.
Attending a CUNY college tuition-free has just gotten easier for some, but not all, New York State residents. Governor Andrew Cuomo approved an $87 million fund, which will make college tuition-free for over 200,000 students at New York City public colleges and universities. More than 1,000 Hunter College students completed the application for the fall semester, and 700 received the award. But those who didn't are wondering why they didn't qualify. Vanessa Guardado, a junior from Long Island, applied for the Excelsior Scholarship because her parents cannot afford to pay for her almost $7,000 tuition at Hunter College.
I rely a lot on financial aid and TAP and Pell and all of that. Financial aid doesn't cover my full tuition, so I do end up having to take out loans every semester to cover my full tuition.
The governor's website states that thousands of CUNY students applied for the scholarship, but only a third qualified.
I would love to know why I was denied because I really need it.
The award is designed for students who meet a long list of criteria.
The Excelsior Scholarship requires that you are a full-time student and are successfully completing 30 credits per year, and there's also an income requirement as well. So for the incoming class for fall 2017, the requirement is students whose household income is $100,000 or less.
That income level is why Hunter's sophomore, Olivia Betts from Long Island, was also turned down.
It would be helpful, or it would have been beneficial if I could have been qualified, or if my family situation was different, like my parents were technically divorced instead of just separated, I would have qualified, but they're not.
The Excelsior Scholarship is being phased in over 3 years, and the maximum household income for families to be eligible will rise to $125,000 in 2020. That means an additional 45,000 CUNY students will qualify for this award.
Whether you're a climate change skeptic or a believer, our Earth is undeniably warmer, with sea levels rising and a record-breaking hurricane season. In a White House filled with climate change deniers, Hunter College students weigh in on this edition of Hunter Students Speak.
Yeah, but I know that
all this talk about it being a hoax, I don't think that's very probable with all these scientists, with actual facts.
The current state of climate change is pretty bad.
Climate change is probably the biggest threat to human civilization just overall that we face right now.
it seems pretty evident with a lot of the really erratic and unprecedented series of storms and very turbulent weather seasons that we have a really big issue with climate change that's coming around now.
We get a lot hotter summers now and a lot colder winters.
Hurricane Harvey and Irma definitely were very destructive because of climate change.
We see on the news all the things about the storms in Puerto Rico, throughout the Caribbean, in Texas, and we see this, and it's coming everywhere. There's no way that this situation is going to get better by itself.
Looking back 100, 200 years ago in weather records, you can see that these things weren't as big of an issue as they are now.
The winters get weird nowadays in New York. We don't really get snow like that anymore.
The reason why Donald Trump doesn't believe climate change exists is because he's devoted his whole career on working on the backs of other people. And as somebody who has been working in the business realm, he really doesn't know anything about environmental control.
Claiming that climate change is a hoax and that it doesn't exist is, I don't know where he's living, if he's living on another planet or something.
I think it's crazy how he doesn't think it exists.
So it makes sense that he would be against any measures to protect the environment because they would be hurting business interests.
I do think little things can help make changes.
Do carpool, like try to avoid contributing to pollution. Maybe don't throw your trash around either.
A lot of work has to be done. Like, it will definitely not be accomplished in a matter of decades.
Our Earth has a limited time. Our Earth has a limited shelf life on it, and eventually we're going to have to live underground or live on the moon or something.
At the end of the day, if we all actively do this, it'll help for a brighter future. So we don't have all these hurricanes wiping out islands.
A recently released report on climate change differs little from past reports. The scientific consensus remains that man-made global warming is happening, and its consequences will grow increasingly severe if nothing is done to curb greenhouse gas emissions. The 2017 hurricane season officially ended on November 30th, but will not be forgotten anytime soon. This fall will go down as the 5th most active season ever in the Atlantic. Hurricane Maria was one of those storms, devastating the island of Puerto Rico. Months after Maria struck Puerto Rico, 50% of the island is still in the dark with little or no electricity. And Hunter College is still doing its part to provide aid for those affected by the storm.
Since Hurricane Maria first made landfall on the island of Puerto Rico on September 20th, it has caused widespread destruction and crisis. Weeks after the storm ended, millions of residents lacked access to electricity and clean water and were cut off from the world, according to CNN. Hunter College student Patri Gonzalez has family back in Puerto Rico, who she finally was able to get in contact with weeks after the storm ended. Now, she's doing her best to help them out of the dire situation.
It's hard to live day to day, so some people have decided to leave for a while, and some people have decided to leave forever. I got a call from my parents, and they were trying, but their very limited cell phone service, to purchase a ticket out, because that moment during the first week, people started realizing that the situation was not going to get any better.
Patri was able to buy her parents a ticket to New York to stay with her until the situation settled down, and soon after, all tickets had sold out.
So the magnitude of this humanitarian crisis is unprecedented in Puerto Rican history. Let's put it this way. Maria changed everything. So if you go to our Rebuild Puerto Rico platform on the web, you're going to find information that is pertinent to help Puerto Rico rebuild its economy and rebuild the country.
Hunter College's Zeta Pi Alpha sorority is doing their part in collecting aid for those affected. The sorority is continuing to send out aid despite the issues with supplies being received over in Puerto Rico.
So we just want to do as much as we can to help out everyone over there. Especially, we have our own sister who has her family over there, but everyone else, we wanted to try and do as much as we could and provide what we can.
Aside from collecting supplies every week, the sorority also held a bake sale to raise money to be sent to the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico.
Though many groups are providing aid to Puerto Rico, the island has suffered major setbacks. The true extent of Maria's damage is still being tallied, but according to a November forecast by The Economist, the island's economy will shrink by about 8% in 2018. That puts Puerto Rico at the top of the list in the slowing growing economies in the world.
While Puerto Rico struggles to rebuild, here on the mainland, many government officials are calling for the removal of monuments, statues, and markers that celebrate controversial Civil War-era leaders following the white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. On the heels of that controversy, Hunter College students weighed in on what to do with the monuments in this edition of Hunter Students Speak.
But I know that
150 years ago, when the monuments were created, I think they were symbolic of white pride.
A sense of conservatism and old values that they maintained for hundreds of years.
To the black community, it symbolizes oppression.
It's scary thinking about having younger siblings and having to explain what they represent and what America represents. It's very uncomfortable
The Confederate flag is just a sense of empowerment, a sense of I'm an American and I'm proud to be an American.
The Confederate monuments are a part of history. They remind us of a dark time in history, like I said before, that we never want to revisit again.
Compared to the minorities who are still struggling to this day, dealing with racism, dealing with oppression, I don't think it's very fair to them to keep up monuments that are obviously symbolic of a time where they were struggling, as they still are.
If they represent slavery, that's something that we should definitely be ashamed of. I think everyone should be ashamed of slavery.
I do not agree with the removal of the Confederate monuments because I feel like to do that is to hide the truth of America.
It should be ripped down. It should be teared down, because why would you look at something that boldly says that I don't stand for minorities, or I don't stand for your treatment of people?
The Confederate monuments should be removed, but not destroyed. I think they should be maintained in museums for their historical purposes. I believe that, like I said, for historical purposes, it's important to remember history and that you shouldn't erase history. That way you can't learn from it.
A 2017 Reuters poll found that just over half of American adults say that the monuments should remain in public spaces, while a quarter say they should be removed.
Seems like people are just as indecisive about the monuments as I am about whether or not I want to go to grad school.
That's for sure, Veronica.
Well, this wraps up our Hunter College Newsbreak.
I'm Kaylee Ebanks.
And I'm Veronica Matveev. We'll see you next time.